Welcome to another episode of the Live Happy, Healthy, and Inspired podcast. The podcast all about inspiring good health, living life fully, and chasing your dreams. In this episode, we'll be exploring the question, how do you overcome the speed bumps of the mind and get out of your own way? I'll be joined by mindset and habits coach Shane Boyd as we dive deep into overcoming the speed bumps of the mind, those limiting beliefs and negative self-talk that holds you back. Be sure and listen all the way to the end as well, as Shane shares his most important piece of advice for how you can overcome the speed bumps of your mind. And one announcement before we get started, the Be Well, Be Safe, Be Happy, Eat Ice Cream podcast has been rebranded and is now the Live Happy, Healthy, and Inspired podcast. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, good evening, I guess, depending on where in the world that you are. That's what I like about this podcast. We're in 48 countries, so shooting for 50 countries right now. But today on the podcast, I have with me, coming to us from South Carolina, Shane. Shane, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm glad to be here, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so appreciative that you can be here. I always say this, but I'm so lucky to meet amazing people, like-minded people like you all over the world. And I think we originally connected in one of the Tony Robbins or Dean Graziosi mastermind groups on Facebook. And I saw your stuff and very inspirational. A lot of your posts, specifically about mindset and whatnot. I'm like, I gotta reach out to this guy. I gotta get him on my podcast. So thanks for answering. And here we are. So Shane, yeah, we're going to talk about today. I love this idea that you came up with: how to overcome the speed bumps in your mind, get out of your own way, and unleash your greatness. That is amazing, awesome. We all need help with that. So I'm going to let you take at it and start with that, Shane.
Awesome. First of all, thank you again, Brad, and thank you for everybody who's here. I mean, good afternoon, good evening, or good night,
Yeah,
whatever going on.
wherever you are.
But at any rate, to talk about speed bumps in the mind, that's where I'll begin. Um, that's something that people don't really talk about. Speed bumps, what is that? What are you referring to? Quite honestly, it's something that I coined years ago when I started speaking and coaching and consulting, and I self-published a book about it called Speed Bumps in the Mind. It's just an Amazon, I put on there.
I'll have
But
to check that
anyway,
out.
speed bumps in the mind. I mean, what is that? Well, I mean, many people would call it like mental blocks. Okay, there's that. I coined the phrase speed bumps as far as speed bumps in the mind because I was quite literally a human speed bump. And that's no exaggeration. I won't go too deep into the whole detail of it, but in a nutshell, in December of 1999, so I'm dating myself. Yes, I'm age. My kids are grown. So at any
We're
rate,
about the same age, so no worries.
uh, so back in December of '99, I was having one of those nights where I wasn't driving, so I had no worries about consuming alcohol. Um, I ended up falling out of the moving truck that we were in. I'm climbing out of the back window. Don't ask why I was doing that. It didn't make any sense at the time anyway.
Okay.
So I was climbing out of the back window of the moving truck. And as the story goes from those I was with, we hit a speed bump and then we stopped. Well, in that area of the neighborhood I lived in, there were no speed bumps. I was the speed bump, but nobody knew. I mean, we were all inebriated that night, so nobody was in their right mind. This is midnight 30. Nobody knew. They just knew they hit a speed bump. Shane wasn't in the seat. They stopped the truck and they came out to get me.
You were the speed bump.
I
Hey,
was a
you.
speed bump.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For those of you ones that might be truck people or know a lot about vehicles, I'll tell you what the vehicle was, because it wasn't like a Ford Ranger like I had. It was a 1993 Ford F-350. It was a dually diesel crew cab and had a fifth wheel in the back.
Mm.
People who know vehicles know what all that means.
Yeah. It's a big truck for
It was
for
probably the biggest non-commercial truck on the road at the time. Anyway, they got out of the vehicle. They helped me up. And those who have had a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, or know somebody that has, you don't know when you see that person. You can't look at somebody and tell they have a brain injury. It's in the brain, and you can't tell. So I fault nobody but myself. for this whole thing. But they got out, helped me up. And I guess I was doing okay. I was kind of walking back to the truck and I started like cursing the driver at the time, my friend. I mean, I kind of joke about it. I mean, he ran me over. Would you like curse at him too? I mean, I was kind of ticked off, right? But we went back to my apartment where I was with my brother, where I stayed. And then they woke my brother up because he's my older brother. So what do? You're early 20s. You walk in, Shane's kind of a mess. They went to get my older brother, and he came out and he's like, just lay him on the floor, he'll sleep it off. I didn't sleep it off. I didn't wake up the next day at all. And I like to joke about this as well. So their first instinct then was to call my dad. Now, my dad was a great carpenter, but he was not a physician. But they called my dad nonetheless. So it made
Kind of
sense.
911, but okay.
Not 911. It's call my dad. Okay. So
Yeah, okay.
and as any dad would look down at his youngest son essentially dying on the floor, and he was like, "Call an ambulance now." You know, that's where that went. So there was the next day I went to the hospital, the first smaller hospital closest to our house. Said, "No, we don't deal with head injuries here. Go down to the regional." And that's what happened. So the next day I had brain surgery, legit brain surgery. You can't see the camera here, but I got a scar on my head right here, and I got a steel plate in my head from the brain surgery. That was legit. And with after that took Crikey, about a month later, I was coherent doing things. I was back in the gym. I was month and a half. I was back to work. At this time, I was 22 years old. So you bulletproof and, 10 feet tall and just full of vigor. So I was just,
Yeah,
okay, fine. I'm good. So that was legit. That was where the whole speed bumps in the mind came from. And I did a lot since then. I mean, that's back 20, almost 25 years ago now. But that's where people ask, speed bump, what do you mean? That's where I got it from.
and so how did that devolve into actual speed bumps in the mind? Because what you mean by speed bumps now are like the mental blocks or the limiting beliefs or
Yeah,
things like
that's
that.
thank you. That's just where I started the story. So they know where that came from. But from there, and I have done multiple speeches. I started different companies. And I owned a small business for a number of years, and I went through and I got a associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and a master's. I have an MBA. And through all of that, I realized that I can do this, which is speak. And I started dabbling into that. And I realized I think I like doing this. This is kind of fun. And at the time, I had the job that afforded me the opportunity to do it. So I was doing the research. I was reading all the books, and they see behind me a whole library. And I was,
I see your library. Yeah, it's quite impressive. Yeah. So
and of course,
Shane, what are some of the speed bumps then that you're kind of referring to that people have in their mind, I guess?
yeah, the first thing is we simply have poor habits and we don't even realize it. Like people don't think about your mindset being a habit.
They don't. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we don't think about that at all. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, my mindset is a habit. Yeah.
It is if you kind of wake up and stinking thinking the first thing and you do it for several days in a row, before you know it, it's a habit. I mean, here's another one. Let's say you're claustrophobic, very common one. If you have phobias, I totally get it. I have them too. But I mean, every time you would pass by an elevator, you might get nervous and freak out. That's not really a threat. Now you've done it so many times, it becomes a habit. So you see the elevator, you freak out. So a lot of times it's simply we have poor habits and aren't even aware of it. But what's funny with the whole speed bumps, and just from definitions terms, you look up the word speed bump. Just look it up in the Webster's dictionary at dictionary.com. You're going to see a lot of different things, but essentially, think about a speed bump for your car. You go over a speed bump. Well, it's designed to slow you down, but it can also cause damage to a vehicle. Now, think about that.
That's interesting. Well, real quick, also, Shane, when you go over a speed bump in life, like an actual one in a parking lot, it can alter your mood too.
Yes,
And so
yes,
our mind can actually alter our feelings, how we're feeling a little bit. Yeah.
yes. That's where I started dabbling into mindset and started talking about this and motivation and inspiration. But I mean, looking at a speed bump, it can actually damage a vehicle. Have you ever seen in some neighborhoods that have pretty high speed bumps? And
Uh-huh.
sometimes you have to kind of go over them almost at an angle, or if you have
Yeah.
a low riding vehicle, it'll scrape the bottom. Well, it can actually damage you. Well, those speed bumps are the mental blocks that we have. Well, they prevent us from doing the things we're designed to do simply because you have a habit of thinking, I'm not qualified. This isn't for me. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm too qualified for this, but I can't try that. All these different things, essentially lies that we tell ourselves. And that's the whole mind chatter that we have, this whole headspace we have, and we tell ourselves and talk ourselves out of something. Here's an example. Anybody listening or watching ever had like an idea to do something? I mean, and behind that idea, it just doesn't matter what it was. Invent a new car, start a business. I mean, be a foster parent, whatever it is. You had this great, like, oh man, it's awesome. And there's so much energy and charge behind it, right? And you feel this, yeah. But then you kind of sit with it. And then you go through your mind all the things 20, 30, 40 steps down the road that may be challenging and you don't know how to do right now. And you talk yourself right out of the very thing that 5 minutes ago you were jazzed about. That's a mental block. That's a speed bump. I mean, that's a poor habit of over analyzing a great idea, So
And you mentioned just a moment ago that we're not even aware of this. Like we've created this habit with our mindset and we're not even aware of it. So how do we even like get aware of it, of these thoughts or whatever?
we, that's kind of a big topic as well, becoming aware. I mean, that's like step one. I mean, we're all kind of like victims, of our own reality at times, and we make excuses. But then if you stop and just think about what do I want? That's a valid question that it's not taught in school. I mean, I'm one that has an MBA, so I've been through all the fun stuff. They don't teach you how to think in school, they teach you how to conform. And that's from grade school on. You're not really taught how to think. And I was in a critical thinking class in my master's degree. No, you're taught how to follow directions. We're never taught to stop and think, what do we want? What do you want?
That,
That's how you become aware. That's
that
the first step for me. I learned from a coach. That's how I learned it.
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. What do you want? So how do you get your mind on the right track then? Like if we talk about a habit, we talk about like a positive habit, a healthy habit, like we'll say walking, or we can talk about like a negative, unhealthy habit, like just as an example, like smoking or something like that, or a gambling addiction. So how do we get our mind to be that healthy habit, I guess, version or whatnot?
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, in our life in general, we only have 7 areas of life.
Okay.
And the long answer, we only have 7 areas of life anyway. And we have mental, we got spiritual, we got physical, we got family and financial, personal, and career. That's basically the 7 spokes of our life. Now it's everything fits in there. Now look at your life right now. This good, bad, or indifferent. Don't be angry or judgy on yourself. Just look at your life. Your life is a sum total of all the habits and that got you there. So you figure out, what do I want? What is it going to take to get there? What have I done to get here? What's it going to take to get there? So now you become aware of, okay, I'm $200,000 in debt and don't have a house. Okay, crying out loud, I got poor money habits. That will reveal itself. I mean, I'm a believer, so I believe in God and Jesus. So, I mean, Jesus said, you can judge a tree by its fruits. Okay, look at the fruits of your life, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it is. I mean, that is because you had a habit mentally, you had a habit spiritually, you got physical habits. I mean, if you're 5'2" and 300 pounds, you've got an eating problem. Okay. I mean, there's something there, and lack of exercise. That's what you had, poor habits of eating, exercise. Okay. I mean, let's say you're terribly in debt. You have poor money habits. Now you realize, okay, let's replace those bad habits with good habits. Money wise, I spend more than I earn. What's the first thing you would do to fix that?
Spend
Stop
less.
spending. Stop spending. That's where people don't, we're not taught to write things down in this order. Okay. Figure out what you want and then make a plan to get there. What do you want in life? Realize my habits brought me here. Okay. I want to be fit and wealthy. Okay. What have been my habits? Look at what's your day like. What's your day is like?
So how can you
What's your
create
month like?
how can you create the habit of a healthy mindset then to like let's say I support like let's say I write down my goals. I want In my case, actually, I'll tell you some of my goals. I want to get to 50 countries on my podcast, eventually 100 countries. That's my long-term goal. I'm at 48 right now. I just released a book. I'd like to, ultimately sell 1,000 copies within, ideally the first couple months, but, a year or something like that. Always have financial habits. I have some traveling goals. I'd like to visit at least two countries, 2024, 2025. Just keep building my country list. I'm at 19 right now and building. So how do I get the mindset habits to support all that, I guess?
Okay. What do you feed in your mind? That's what I would ask somebody.
Good question. Yeah, well, physically, I feed it like carrots and vegetables,
We need that, right?
quinoa, and what do I have for? I think I have a vegetarian quinoa salad for lunch today, pretty soon. But
That's great.
that's a really good question. What am I feeding my mind? I feed my mind for me personally. It's taken on me a while to get here, but I feed my mind that all of this is possible. I just don't know how.
Okay. So we're talking about the mindset now. You're
Yeah.
going to change it by what are you feeding? Because your appetite for that thing will grow the more you feed it. For example, if you're completely in love with pizza and eat that every day, you're going to have more of an appetite for that. If you eat it a lot, you'll start developing more appetite for that. Well, let's go back to mindset. What are you reading? What information are you putting in your mind? Are you reading about mindset? Are you reading about habits? Are you reading personal development? Are you following people that are where you want to be and following the steps they're taking? That's how you adjust your mindset. That's a mindset in a very specific category. If I want to be a best-selling author and podcast and have this, well, feed your mind from the people who were there. Who's the number one in your field? Look at that person. How did they get there? Not where they are now. How did they get there? What did they do? Okay, now once you do that, your mind realizes, oh, correct, I can do that, do that, do that. So you start feeding your mind. That's how you develop a mindset.
So that's such a good point. That's something I've really worked on is feeding my mind healthy thoughts, like feeding my mind thoughts on what I want my life to look like and what I want to have in my life. But so many people are stuck on feeding their mind unhealthy things. Like for the longest time, I'm trying to think of what one of my beliefs that was holding me back was. The longest time I had a belief, okay, here's one. I'd broken through it, but just to give an example, I had a belief that like anything was possible for everyone except me.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's possible for Shane to, do climb this mountain or get to be a millionaire or best-selling author. It's possible for anybody and everything to have everybody else to have a small business. It's possible for everybody except me. That was a thought that I was feeding my mind. And I didn't even know it for like 3 years when I really got into this journey about 3 years ago. And I just finally overcame it about, gosh, 6 months ago, maybe. Yeah. So what would you tell someone that is feeding their mind and like I didn't even know I had that thought. I had to really dig deep in my journaling, like what's going on here. You posted and I'm kind of going off here a little bit. Sorry, I'll let you talk.
Okay.
You posted a great video that I watched this morning. And your point of the video, or I don't know when you posted it, but I watched it. It was if your business is struggling, it's because you're struggling. And I went, oh my God, that hit me like a ton of bricks. And the root of our struggle is our mind, our mindset.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is. Thank you for watching the video, but it's a valid point. But to go back to your first question is, okay, that's the first step is what do you feed your mind? The second step is what's your self-talk? What do you tell yourself? You just told me what it was. Oh, that's something that everybody can do but me.
I
Well,
told myself that for the longest time, and I didn't even realize I was telling myself that. Yeah, it's crazy.
we've all heard, and it doesn't matter. The world around us is crazy at times, but if you told a lie enough, you believe the lie.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody has read from these studies or not, but just for example, this is how powerful your mind is. And studies have been done for the past 100 years on this to prove it to be true. If you take a athlete, let's say they're running track, okay, you take that person, have that person run track and do the whole running and the whole process and practice, whatever else. You take a person who runs that track meet in their mind, that in their mind, that person can pretty much perform about the same way as a person practicing because they see it continually. As they're visualizing it, they're firing off the same muscles as they're doing it. Crazy. That's how powerful our mind is. So what are you feeding it and what's your self-talk? It may sound cliche, but if you don't think you can do it, you're not going to do it. And if you tell yourself, you can't do this, you won't even try. Doesn't matter what coach tells you, no matter what book says, if you have a belief that says, I cannot do this, you won't even try it. So then what do you do? Well, here's what I did. I improved my life 3 by 5 at a time. What does that mean?
Yeah, let's just say hypothetically, okay, like I'm a brand new client of yours and you've just been observing me and you see I've got unhealthy feeding habits for my mind. Like, what's the first thing you would tell me?
I would ask you, what do you develop? What are you feeding yourself? I mean, it's a whole process I go through. That would be kind of probably step 3 or 4. But
Yeah, we won't
anyway,
go through the whole process, but
what do you? No, we wouldn't go there first. Yes, don't go somewhere else. Anyways, I would ask you, what are you feeding yourself? What do you feed your mind? If you have a negative mindset, are you watching? Are you watching the news? Are you watching horror movies? Are you watching? Are you myopic? Are you just looking at what things are now? Those are all
watch
negative.
Forces of Nature. I watched one on Discovery, or I think it was CNN or Discovery last night about or no tornadoes. It's quite fascinating. But anyway, yeah,
They are, they are. But then I would also advise a person to, who are you watching as far as inspiration? I follow the late and great people. I mean, I'm a Ziegler coach. I follow Ziegler. I follow Jim Rohn. I mean, they're all past now. And Mark Victor Hansen is great. I love his inspiration. He's so powerful and fun. I mean, if you can look at the library behind me, Earl Nightingale, and I read from Napoleon Hill. Okay, some of those and their old time stuff. I mean, some of these books are written in the 30s. Okay, so it's different. But where do you think the people from today got the idea from? Tony Robbins isn't new. He didn't do anything new. He's fantastic at what he does. I mean, he does. He's awesome. Dean Graziosi, nothing new. He's
yeah.
just purposing it in a different way for us to absorb. So that's where I would direct somebody. Okay, you need to start reading these things, start watching these things, and 3 by 5 at a time. Those are gold cards.
So that
Those,
also kind of sounds like, and I think actually Tony Robbins talks about this about chunking it down, taking the baby
oh, yeah.
steps. So like if you're listening to this and you've got, for lack of a better term, a faulty, upset, or your check mindset light is on. There you go. There's a phrase. Check
I like
engine.
it.
Your check mindset light is on. Pick up one book. Start with one book and then another book, and then another video. What? Let me ask you this, Shane. Sometimes, like for me, that belief I had, that it'll work for everybody except me. I didn't even know I had this belief. I had to really dig deep in my journal. It took like initially, I think about 6, 7 pages of journaling over about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, maybe, to bring that belief to the surface. And I went, oh my effing God. I literally said that to myself because I did not know I was carrying around that belief. How can people dig deep and pull some of these beliefs out that they don't even know they have? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, gosh. That still kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier is what's your self-talk? Ask yourself, what are you telling yourself?
Yeah, I
And
didn't
then
know I was telling myself that.
you won't until you dig into it. Once you started journaling, see, I'm doing it verbally with you. Once you start journaling, you was journaling things probably about gratitude and where you want to go in life. And then these beliefs pop up for your journaling. When
Yeah.
you're talking with somebody, similar things happen. I would specifically ask you, what are you telling yourself? Okay, you want to do this. What do you tell yourself? The main thing is that belief is there and it's preventing you. It's a lot of times it's an unconscious belief. You don't even know it's there.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's unconscious or subconscious. But yeah, I had no clue when that finally came to the surface through journaling. I was shocked. I was stunned that I
and
believed it
I'm
was possible for
I'm
everybody.
one. It's funny. I don't unpack all my stuff. I never really did. I know a lot of people say go through, unpack, therefore find out what's all this stuff. I'm like, squash that. Let's just put in good habits, and those bad ones will exist and can go away. That's my wife argues about that with me as well. I don't unpack all my bad stuff. I'm like, I don't want that. I meditate, I pray, I write down gratitude, I feed my mind all these good stuff, and I have positive self talk 3x5 at a time. I have goal cards I read in the morning first thing. So therefore, the first thoughts I have in the morning after I feed my pets anyway is
They always come first.
priority, right? Is I'm inputting good into my mind. And part of it is reading goal cards that tell me I am enough. I am qualified. I believe in myself. I know I can do this. I'm made for this. Those are pretty short things, but when your mind is kind of foggy in the morning, that's the best time to put those things in there.
Oh, that's interesting. That's like kind of like a cup of coffee for your mind.
It is. I mean, I
Yeah.
had talked about how to achieve your goals 3x5 at a time. I had a speech about that. What that was, I have my 3x5 cards beside my coffee pot. Takes about 5 minutes for the coffee to brew to where I need it. Well, I can go through and feed the pets and go through all of my goal cards in that time. And it doesn't need to be 100 of them. I mean, just a handful of them. Well, guess what? You start believing that. You don't even notice you had bad thoughts before. I'm not one that says you have to find the bad thoughts and replace them. Once you start putting these good thoughts in, you're moving towards that. They don't even matter you had terrible ones. You're just moving towards the good stuff.
That's fascinating. So we're talking about feeding your mind and then giving a cup of coffee to your mind in the morning in the form of
Right?
these goal cards. I am enough. I am capable of this. Anything is possible for me and everyone. Yeah, I really like that. And for anyone listening, so you start with, day one and you do 5 minutes of this every day. Like add this to your morning, when you're actually drinking your coffee, like you just said, read your goal cards. And the thing I learned over time is like, even if you read a goal card, I am enough, and you don't believe it, like you'll feel if you believe it or not. If you repeat it enough, like literally every day for 6 months, eventually your body's gonna go, oh, you know what? I am enough. This is
Thank
true.
you. It just happens. I mean, because when you first start, somebody listening today has never done it. I'm going to tell you straight. When you start it, here's what you're going to hear. Not audible. You're going to hear it in your head because we're always having conversations in our mind. You're going to hear this. Oh, you liar, you are not. Oh, you full of
Yeah,
beans. You're
yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah.
you remember that time back 10 years ago, you said you're going to do this and you didn't, so you suck. You're going to hear that. It's fine. It's totally normal, okay? Because now, guess what? You're changing your pattern. You're comfortable. That's a whole new dynamic there, but you are comfortable in your uncomfortableness. And as soon as you start to move, what your brain want to do? Your brain wants to keep you safe, right? Your brain's
There you
cool
go.
here. Your
Yeah.
brain's in this lane, man. Doesn't matter you're in poverty and 400 pounds overweight. You're comfortable there. You know you got certainty. You're good with that. As soon as you begin to change, your brain says, "Oh, warning, this is bad, bad, bad." Well, no,
Mhm.
it isn't. No, it isn't. You just had poor habits and didn't even realize it. You start putting in good. It's like having a glass of dirty water. Let's say a glass this big here of dirty water. Get
Yeah.
2 gallons of clean water. Guess what you got? You got clean water. All the dirty nonsense got washed out. You kept putting in good, the bad goes away.
So if your brain puts up that warning, like warning, warning, you're going out of your comfort zone, or warning, warning, let's stay safe. How do you deal with that, I guess?
It is part of the process.
Yeah.
It's understand if you haven't heard it before, I'm telling you now because I had to read books and have coaches tell me it's part of the process. For example, if you're not one that normally goes to the gym and you go to the gym and you do bench pressing and you do some lat pull downs and some sit-ups, well, guess what? The next day you're kind of uncomfortable, you're sore. It's
Yeah.
part of the process. Good things are happening, right? You're just changing. That's all that's going on. Your brain is used to things being a certain way. Brain's trying to keep you safe. That's a whole other topic, but your brain's trying to keep you safe. And if you alter your safety zone, your brain kind of freaks out. It says, hey, but then you start putting in all these good things. It's just you're developing a new habit. And that's why it's the habits are so strong, and those grooves are so strong in our brain.
One thing that's helped me for anyone listening is like I kind of imagine my goal, whatever, as a target. So, like as an example, again, 100 countries for this podcast. That's what I'm focused on, and I keep focus on that particular goal. I don't have a clue how I'm going to get to 100 countries. I'll just be honest. I have no clue. Just keep producing, keep talking, and one country at a time. But I stay focused on that goal, and I just know that this goal is possible. I just have that belief this goal is possible. And so I repeat that over and over. You're right. You go to the gym, you do 100 bench presses, you get stronger day after day, week after week, month after month. And so it's the same thing with our brain, our mindset. We have to go to the mindset gym.
We
So
the mindset, Jim. Yes, yes, we do. And it's very much a process. Here, I understood this from Jim Rohn, and obviously it's old. I mean, he passed away years ago, but here's how he said it. I mean, how many? You mentioned push-ups. This was his analogy too. How many push-ups can he do today? You're brand new at this. How many push-ups can he do today? Let's say five. Okay, great. You do five today and five the next day. Well, then how many can he do on day three? Well, he can do seven. How does that happen? Oh, then on day 21, you can do 20 push-ups. You can go from 5 to 20. How does that happen? You're continuing to work that muscle. Our brain is a huge muscle, and it's been so many habits are there that we don't even realize it. Once you begin to start this whole process, it's going to feel uncomfortable. After a few days, you're going to have new habits and not even want to do the things you did in the past because you're feeling so good. But if you don't have a goal to reach for, you won't do any of it anyway.
yeah,
And
and
that's why I start with where do you want? Where do you want to go?
yeah, you're a good example, Shane. You work on your mindset day in and day out over the course of how many days, weeks, months, and years, and now you're living proof of what we're talking about here today. I want to dive into one other thing. You talked about, okay, how to overcome speed bumps in your mind, but you also mentioned get out of your own way. Can you
Oh
expand
gosh,
on that a little bit? Because I
yes,
think, yeah, we're all in our own way. How do we get out of our own way, I guess?
yeah. That's again realize that, and I talk about this in business. You are your biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
It's not the economy. I mean, it's not your competition. I mean, it's not anybody else around you. It's not your thing. No, no, it's you. And I liked it the best when I heard it from Larry Winget and his word verbatim. Your life is your own damn fault. I was like, okay. But how do we get out of our own way? Once you start developing these habits I was talking about earlier, you realize that you are the reason that you're not going further. Get out of your own way. Realize you are enough. If and this is kind of going um, kind of airy fairy for some, I was mentioning it anyways. I do believe in the law of attraction and whatnot, simply because you're focusing on it, so you just subconsciously go towards it. But you are the one preventing everything. And if you don't have a goal, you won't move towards it. But once you begin to write down what you want and the way to achieve it exists already. If you didn't want to have a podcast that reaches 100 countries, you wouldn't be here today. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have, that's not my jam. I think it's great, but it's not my jam. Therefore, I won't get it. The way to that
Good
to
point.
exist,
Yeah.
the way exists. It is there. The way exists because I believe God gave the inspiration to do it. Others want to say universe. I believe in God. So I believe God gave you the desire and the inspiration to do it because it came from our Creator, anyways. The way exists. So get out of our own way. You have to understand that what you want wants you. Okay, this is made for you. You're made to have a podcast. This is what you're doing. You're passionate about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be here.
I
And
love
whoever your audience is, same thing. Whatever your career is, whatever your passion is, it wants you the same. Move towards that. Forget about how it feels or whatever else. Just move towards that. That's why it's so important to write out. Can't stress enough. What do you want? Because what you want wants you.
Yeah, well, I want 100 countries for my podcast. Yeah, that's and yeah, I can't explain it. There's some burning desire within here that's that keep doing that. I actually thought about quitting the podcast a while back because it is a lot of work. Uh, Reaching out to people, scheduling appointments, blah blah blah, getting the Zoom set up, all that. But there's something driving me that yeah, I want this podcast as far and wide as possible. It's so valuable lessons what you're sharing here today, Shane.
My gosh, you have that. You say, you're basically broadcast in nearly 50 countries. That is a pretty powerful introduction. I personally don't know exactly everything that you do, sir, but I know that's an awesome introduction. If you
Yeah.
wanted to speak, coach, consult, write books, whatever, that's a powerful introduction right there, man. This
Yeah,
is one.
I'm excited. I was in 46 countries about 3 months ago. I picked up, I started to keep track what are my new countries I'm picking up. So it's 48 countries right now. Goal is to get to 50 countries in another month or two and then just keep plugging away. and get to 100 countries. A big lesson that I realized in all of this, Shane, and then I'm going to ask you to kind of start wrapping up here, is I realized that whatever your goal is, so we'll just use mine again, is 100 countries, that goal is there. It's like the finish line of a race. That finish line is there. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I don't know how I'm going to get to it. I just know I'm going to get to it. And that mindset in and of itself. So if you're listening, whatever your goal is, just know you're going to get to your goal. You may not know how or when, path A may not work or something. So I've started and stopped and tried various angles of the podcast, but we're still going, we're still cruising. But anyway, so repeating that mindset over and over. My finish line is there. I'm reaching my finish line. That is 100 goals. I'm crossing that finish line. And when I cross that finish line, then I can already tell you, I'll set my next goal will be 150 countries.
Oh gosh, you're going to have that by the time you reach 80. By the time you hit 80 countries, you're going to have a new goal. That's kind of goal setting 101. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Shane, anyway, let's start to wrap this up. So, is there anything that you have not said today about this idea of mindset and getting out of your own way that you would like to say now that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
Oh, gotcha. I just want to basically reiterate the fact that whatever you want wants you, and you are the one that's going to make it happen. It won't happen for you.
Yeah.
And your habits brought you to where you are today, but those habits won't take you to where you really want to go. So if you want a whole new life, you're going to have to replace your bad habits with good habits. I mean, I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier too, we're responsible for our failures, but we're also responsible for our own successes
Oh,
based
gosh, yeah.
on habits grounded in our mindset. So, and I always ask this question at the end, Shane. You kind of just said it, but if you had one piece of advice to share, what would that be?
You know what? I would say this again. Whatever you want wants you.
Okay.
So move towards that.
Yeah, very good, very good. And Shane, how can someone get a hold of you if they want to? Do you have a coaching page or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, simple enough. I have theshaneboyd.com.
Okay.
I don't do the for arrogant purposes. ShaneBoyd.com was taken. So I had to put he's a
The
football player in Canada. Anyway, theshaneboyd.com. I start with mindset, which that's what I do anyways. But yeah, just theshaneboyd.com. You can find me there on Instagram as well at theshaneboyd.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes. And you mentioned beginning a book, Overcoming Speed Bumps of the Mind or something like that?
Speed Bumps in the Mind. That's on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle as well for a few bucks. But yeah, Speed Bumps in the Mind is the book.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. So, well, Shane, it's been awesome having you here today. Super appreciate it. And I'll definitely keep following you. And more than likely, I'm going to ask you to come back on because there's other topics we could go into and all that. But super appreciate you being here today. And for anyone listening, super appreciate you listening. Help me reach that goal of 100 countries by sharing this podcast, sharing this episode as far and wide as possible. If you wouldn't mind also leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, if you happen to listen to this on Apple Podcasts. Otherwise, again, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. As I say at the end of every episode, be well, be safe, be happy, eat some ice cream. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.